our final presentation on a pre-implementation sustainability evaluation framework for ICT4D projects in Guyana. Displayed are the items to be covered. ICT4D is an initiative aimed at bridging the digital divide and promoting economic and social development by ensuring equitable access to communications, technologies, and relevant information. Developing countries spend over $800 billion on ICT4D initiatives yearly, with over 1,000 ICT4D initiatives implemented in developing countries between 2002 and 2004. However, these initiatives carry high failure rates of up to 70% with few success stories. In reviewing ICT4D literature and history, a common, recurring, and pervasive issue is evident, that of sustainability. Haig describes a sustainable ICT4D initiative as one that endures or continues without stopping. While sustainability is not synonymous with success, it is necessary for success. As such, the current situation is one of high ICT4D failure rates due to unsustainable initiatives. An ideal situation would be a scenario in which sponsors and implementing agencies have a prior knowledge and assurance about the sustainability of ICT projects before implementation. The gap lies in the lack of mechanisms to evaluate on initiatives from a sustainable perspective pre-implementation. This research aims to develop and evaluate the utility of a pre-implementation sustainability evaluation framework for ICT4D projects in Guyana. The research questions are: what factors contribute to the sustainability of ICT4D projects? What are the relationships between these factors, and how can these factors and relationships be used to develop a model that explains the sustainability and offers a mechanism for measuring of an ICT4D project sustainability pre-implementation? The following objectives were established for this research project and collectively contribute to the development of the evaluation framework and its evaluation.
The research methodology is divided into two parts: implementation and evaluation. In achieving objectives 1 and 2, comprehensive literature reviews were conducted. The derived conceptual model was then operationalized to obtain a measurement instrument. The framework was then evaluated against real-world local ICT4D projects using structural equation modeling, and findings reported on. A conceptual model was established from an initial literature review consisting of the five listed latent factors. The diagram shows the conceptual model. Subsequent to the conceptual model, a comprehensive literature review was done to refine the model and led to the development of a cause and effect model. ICT4D literature alludes to more human and social issues rather than technological. When a sense of ownership is established, people seek ways to keep the initiative going, as it is in their own self-interest that it does. Studies suggest that ICTs magnify what is in existence and cannot substitute for missing human intent and capacity. As such, we theorize that the intentions of the targeted community to become local champions, to support, own, and adopt the ICT artifact, as well as their capacity to effectively utilize the ICT artifact, contributes to its actual adoption and usage, and in turn, its sustainability. In addition, a number of elements external to the users, which we refer to as a facilitating environment to support the ICT artifact and its adoption and usage, also influences its sustainability. Depicted is the theoretical sustainability evaluation framework. 8 displayed hypotheses were developed and tested to validate the theoretical model. However, hypotheses 1 and 2 are of primary interest as they directly influence sustainability. Closed-ended questionnaires were used to gather data. Open-ended questionnaires were developed but were met with some resistance as respondents found them time-consuming. As such, we were left with a quantitative approach to analysis. The targeted population was agencies associated with ICT4D, such as the Ministry of Public Telecommunications, the NDMA, and the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs. The statistical tool of choice was SPSS and AMOS, which is an SPSS plugin that allows SEM analysis. Structural equation modeling was used to validate the fit between the theoretical model and data collected. The analysis was run with an initial sample size of 30, however, this was found to be insufficient. As such, additional observations were collected and were proven to be adequate for SEM analysis after running an exploratory factor analysis. Displayed is the structural model as a result of the SEM analysis. Some anomalies were encountered. For instance, the model was shown to have a better structural fit when supporting policies and legislations directly influence sustainability, as opposed to being mediated by a facilitating environment. Future work should include the refinement of such latent variables and their relationships. A p-value less than or equal to 0.05 suggests that there is statistical significance between the variables. The standardized regression coefficient informs on the nature of the relationship, whether positive or negative, ranging from -1 to 1. In line with ICT4D literature, actual adoption and usage and a facilitating environment both contribute to a sustainable ICT4D initiative. The influence was not as strong as expected, with a combined standardized regression coefficient of 0.484. Nonetheless, findings showed that they do indeed influence a sustainable initiative. In contrast to ICT4D literature, a facilitating environment was not shown to influence the user's actual adoption and usage. Neither intent to adopt and use nor capacity to use were shown to influence actual adoption. A check of the raw collected data showed that intent to adopt and use had an average response of 6 on a Likert scale of 1 to 7, which suggests that though users intended to adopt and use the ICT4D artifact, there are other variables which influence and allow this adoption and usage. Neither continuous financing nor supporting policies and legislative frameworks positively influence a facilitating environment, which suggests that respondents may have had a different interpretation of what constitutes a facilitating environment. Contradicting much of ICT4D literature, support from political governing institutions had a negative effect on a facilitating environment, which suggests, at least in Guyana's context, that interventions of both locally governing institutions as well as the national government in ICT4D initiatives has an adverse effect on its sustainability. The researchers were able to establish the factors of a sustainable initiative through a comprehensive literature review. They were then able to design an initial conceptual model, which was further developed into a cause and effect model through further in-depth analysis and literature reviews. Latent variables were then further operationalized into a measurable construct. This measurable construct was then evaluated against local ICT4D initiatives, and the researchers were able to report on their findings. There were limited sample observations, and SEM usually requires large datasets for 100 respondents and above. The sample used was purposive, aimed at people and agencies who participated in ICT4D projects. Questionnaires were distributed to a diverse set of entities, including the Ministry of Public Telecommunications, the Ministry of Finance, GWI, the NEMA, among others. However, only a subset responded. As such, results and findings might be skewed or biased to a particular perspective. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, availability of the target population was adversely affected. As such, we were unable to conduct pilot tests. For future work, the model could be tested again using a larger dataset, as required by SEM analysis. In addition, a mixture of both quantitative and qualitative approaches could be employed. While actual adoption and use and facilitating environment were both shown to directly influence a sustainable initiative, the antecedents of those two variables, which were drawn from literature, were not consistent with local realities. Qualitative methods could be employed to derive their antecedents in a local context. In answering research question number 1, the factors of sustainability were found to be actual adoption and usage and a facilitating environment. As to the relationship between these factors, results show that they both positively influence a sustainable initiative. It was theorized that exogenous variables within the model would have contributed to both actual adoption and usage and a facilitating environment. However, this was not shown to be the case. This suggests that literature might be at odds with local realities. Even though a Cronbach alpha test showed reliability of these measurements, actual data suggested otherwise. Considering the established factors and relationships, pre-implementation, it is advised that implementing agencies first assess the likelihood of and potential uptake, adoption, and usage of the initiative by the targeted community. In addition, they should conduct an ICT environment and readiness assessment. This would inform if the relevant requirements and conditions are in place to sustain the initiative and its continued usage. Positive results on both assessments would suggest that a sustainable initiative is likely. ICT4D has shown its potential to contribute to development. However, in order to contribute to sustainable development, initiatives themselves must be sustainable. While sustainability is not synonymous with success, it is necessary for success, as unsustainability is a form of failure. And with that, we've come to the end of the presentation.